Justin Trudeau is humiliated. The Canadian Prime Minister has had a shocking week as the leader of a government that, alongside Ukrainian President Zelenskyy, honoured a 98-year-old veteran who fought alongside Nazis in World War II. Yes, the optics are not good. Justin Trudeau's response to the incident has only made the situation worse, with the Prime Minister refusing to take accountability for the disaster. Sky News All Stars Piers Morgan, Bolt and Ami Horowitz take a look into Trudeau's PR crisis and what it means for his leadership, which is currently on the brink of collapse. Whilst Ukrainian President Zelenskyy was undertaking his world fundraising tour, the Canadian government honoured a soldier who was later found out to have served in a Nazi unit in World War II, according to Sky News All-Star Bolt.
You've got to ask just how stupid Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the Speaker of Canada's Parliament, Anthony Rota. I mean, how catastrophically, moronically stupid. They had Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy come address their parliament last Friday to plead for more help for Ukraine to fight the Russian invaders. And the Speaker said, well, guess what? In the audience is a Ukrainian Canadian who did just that in World War II. He fought the Russians, good old Yaroslav Hunka.
We have here in the chamber today Ukrainian Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98.
Yes, Canada's Parliament gave Yaroslav a standing ovation, two of them in fact, and he was quite moved. You might even think, he was probably actually very surprised, because the truth is that he fought the Russians as a soldier of the Galicia Division, otherwise known as the 4th Waffengrenadier Division of the SS. That's the Nazi SS.
Mr. Bolt and Sky News All-Star Ami Horowitz say the mistake showed a total ignorance of history on behalf of the Canadian government, Trudeau and Zelenskyy, who is Jewish and was there watching the whole thing unfold.
It makes me wonder how a decision like that could have been made that would be such a gift. It shows to me a total ignorance of history for a start, and this false idea, of course, that the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah, not to push back on you, Andrew, a little bit, but from my understanding, the Galicia unit has in fact been implicated in a bunch of war crimes. I'm not necessarily saying this guy was specifically, but Galicia, I think, was in fact involved in war crimes. And more than that, Galicia was a unit that was actually volunteer. They weren't forced to do by the Nazis. It is not, no, the Galicia unit is not a good look for Canada at all. And yeah, I'd like to know who did their vetting. Obviously, I'm not saying Canada did this on purpose. Obviously, it was a mistake, but a rather large one, in my opinion.
Less than a week after the incident, the House Speaker, Anthony Rota, apologised and resigned, revealed Sky News All-Star Peter Stefanovic.
The Speaker of Canada's House of Commons has resigned less than a week after praising a Ukrainian man who served in a Nazi unit during World War II. Anthony Rota praised Yaroslav Hunka as a hero last week while recognising a number of Ukrainian Canadians. The group was given a standing ovation in Parliament during a visit from the President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Mr. Rota apologised for the incident after a Jewish human rights group found the 98-year-old served as a member of the 14th Waffengrenadier Division of the SS.
I reiterate my profound regret for my error in recognizing an individual in the House during the joint address to Parliament of President Zelenskyy. That public recognition has caused pain to individuals and communities, including the Jewish community in Canada and around the world, in addition to survivors of Nazi atrocities in Poland, among other nations.
And whilst the Speaker took responsibility and decisive action, Trudeau has been slammed by MPs and by the public on social media for refusing to acknowledge his part in the disaster, instead placing the blame solely on the Speaker and apologising on behalf of the Canadian government.
In a few moments, I will address the House in front of all Canadians, in front of Jewish people here and around the world, and Ukrainians, to offer Parliament's unreserved apologies for what happened on Friday. The Speaker was solely responsible for the invitation and recognition of this man and has wholly accepted that responsibility and stepped down. This was a mistake that has deeply embarrassed Parliament and Canada. All of us who were in this House on Friday regret deeply having stood and clapped, even though we did so unaware of the context. It was a horrendous violation of the memory of the millions of people who died in the Holocaust, and it was deeply, deeply painful for Jewish people. It also hurt Polish people, Roma people, 2S LGBTQI+ people, disabled people, racialized people, and the many millions who were targeted by the Nazi genocide.
In a subsequent speech, the Prime Minister also blamed Russian disinformation for the disaster.
Obviously, it's extremely upsetting that this happened. The Speaker has acknowledged his mistake and has apologized. But this is something that is deeply embarrassing to the Parliament of Canada and, by extension, to all Canadians. I think particularly of Jewish MPs and all members of the Jewish community across the country who are commemorating Yom Kippur today. I think it's going to be really important that all of us push back against Russian propaganda, Russian disinformation, and continue our steadfast and unequivocal support for Ukraine, as we did last week with announcing further measures to stand with Ukraine in Russia's illegal war against it.
The opposition has been quick to condemn Trudeau, with the Conservative Party leader slamming the Prime Minister.
Justin Trudeau was responsible for inviting President Zelenskyy to the House of Commons to give that speech. He was responsible for making the event a success. He is responsible for the officials at Global Affairs, the intelligence services, the Prime Minister's protocol office, all of whom could have and should have asked for a complete, vetted list of every one of the people who would be in the room and in proximity of a wartime leader. Every single person ought to have been vetted for their diplomatic and security sensitivities if the Prime Minister and his massive apparatus were doing their jobs. The Prime Minister is now responsible for the biggest single diplomatic embarrassment in Canadian history. And what has he done with that responsibility? He's been hiding out at his cottage. For 3 days he's hid there instead of coming to the House of Commons and taking responsibility. There's always someone else to blame when it comes to Justin Trudeau. But here's the reality. Responsibility and power go together. If he wants the power, he has to take the responsibility and come to the floor of the House of Commons today and apologize to Jews, Poles, Ukrainians, and all Canadians. Justin Trudeau, do your job. Stop hiding. Take responsibility and apologize.
Conservative Party MP Melissa Lantsman also attacked Trudeau in the Canadian Parliament, noting his history of using the Nazi label against opponents, but unable to take responsibility for his own actions.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Speaker, the Prime Minister has never been shy to use the Nazi label against his opponents, against Canadians.
Right.
But not being able to bring himself to take responsibility for an actual Nazi is something that Canadians will not forget.
That's right.
The Prime Minister could have prevented this. He should have prevented it, and he needs to fix it. The world knows that under this Prime Minister, a Nazi was honored in this place. The question is who speaks for Canada? And if it's not this Prime Minister, isn't it time for Canadians to have one who will?
Sky News All Star Piers Morgan says with this fiasco, Trudeau has gift-wrapped Russia a lifetime supply of propaganda material.
We must push back against Russian propaganda, says the man who's just sent a lifetime supply of gift-wrapped material to Russian propagandists. Russia's disinformation machine has spun the demented lie that Ukraine is now run by Nazis. President Zelenskyy, of course, is Jewish, making this entire fiasco even more insulting and ridiculous.